And it is time once again for another AEW Dynamite review here on the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. How you doing? I'm Warren. It's Thursday. It's time for another review. It's what we do here on a weekly basis. It's the best sign that you have that the week is almost over, that we are starting to transition towards the weekend. And I'm going to set you off here. I'm going to help usher in the weekend with a review about an awesome episode of Dynamite. I thought it was great. I had so much fun watching the show last night. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And there you go. Like that's the macro thing. That's the umbrella under which we're going to operate. Just a great top-notch Dynamite that we're going to be reviewing. Before we do, though, if you wouldn't mind leaving a like if you're watching this on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes, or a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, or a 5-star rating on Spotify, that would be great. Just as great as last night's Dynamite was. If you could do that, that would be indeed quite awesome. So there's not going to be a lot of bad stuff that I'm going to be talking about today. I mean, there's one thing in particular that happened on the show that bums me out, that is legitimately bad news. But I think that from a creative perspective, I think that from a wrestling perspective, the show just connected. It flowed. There was a lot of good about the show. There's two reasons for that, I think. The first one is a trend that I've been seeing since we've come back from January. I think I spoke about it last week, but it matters enough to be underscored once again this week. There has just been, these Dynamites have just been chock full of great pro wrestling, just lots of matches and minimal goofy nonsense. It's as if it's as if AEW has decided to lean more towards the wrestling side of things as opposed to dipping into sports entertainment, and I have no issues with that. And and these shows have been so good because of that. Because, as we say so very often, AEW is at its best when it's doing things that its competitors cannot do. And what do their competitors not do? Great wrestling shows. That's what they're unable to do. Wrestling, like pro wrestling, like shit happening in the ring that is entertaining, that's good, that keeps you on your toes, that keeps you fixated on what's going on. The others can't do that. The other guys can't do that. They don't. They could. They choose not to. And whenever AEW then, and on the flip side, when AEW tries to do things that the other guys can, like specifically WWE, when they try to do, the very sports entertainment like stuff, the segments and whatnot on that front, most of the time it comes across as second rate. It comes across as hokey. Comes across as great value sports entertainment, right? Whereas it shows, and I find it always hurts the product, and then it has me sit there and wonder, well, why are they doing this if they're not as good as the other guys, right? So I can only applaud Dynamites like last night, where the wrestling is the focus, where everyone is absolutely locked into the wrestling, and we get just a ton of matches which are so much fun, that serve all sorts of purposes, both for storyline development, for just rankings and whatnot, at least the imaginary rankings that you may have in your head. Like everything connects. So that's one big element. And the second part, well, that has more to do with the people who were on the show. Like last night's Dynamite had so many faces that don't usually show up on Dynamite or in the spots that they were in, where whatever, we'll break it down as we go along. It just all felt really rejuvenated. It felt different. It felt like a fresh coat of paint had been delivered onto Dynamite, and that was also really good. And on top of that, you've got you have one significant swerve, pun intended, that also happened on the show. that is like, yeah, everything just clicked and everything was so simple and effective because AEW has the talent. It has the people that are able to back up, just your essential, your quintessential pro wrestling stories. They have the talent, they have the people, and they have the vision to be able to just stick to the basics, deliver some really interesting stuff, and then that stuff that is delivered is exceptional because of the strength of the talent that they have. Sometimes, you feel like the sports entertainment is a crutch to try and hide other things. But in this case, in a lot of cases in AEW, that is not the case, And look, it was all killer, no filler. I've got nothing but great stuff to talk about and might as well just get to it. Honestly, frankly, really, this Dynamite that happened on January 28th, 2026 at the HEB Center at Cedar Park in, of course, Cedar Park, Texas, just in the shadow of Austin, Texas, I guess. The tickets just distributed. There we go. We're already starting to get all mush-mouthed. The tickets distributed for this show, according to WrestleTix, according to their count yesterday, so I don't have the final count as I'm recording this over lunch on January 29, 2,990 tickets. So it's very, very plausible that they will have hit 3,000 tickets distributed for the show yesterday. The previous attendance for this venue was at 2,828. This is all, of course, according to WrestleTix. 2,828 that happened on February 12, 2025. So a year later, again, continuing this trend of attendance being slightly higher in the same venue than they've seen previously. But again, between 2,828 people and 3,000, it's not that huge a gap either. So again, I'm sure no one's, cracking open champagne and celebrating like crazy, but it's still interesting to note that the audiences have, like, the arrows at the very least are up. Very slight arrows. You're not going to have, like, if you were to illustrate it, your arrow would be green, right? But a paler shade of green than if you experience, like, let's say 20% growth or 30% growth. Then your arrow would be like, a really like a Kelly green type of arrow, which is type of green, I should say, which is probably my favorite shade of green. It's the shade of green that the Minnesota North Stars used to front on their jerseys. I always thought it was an incredible shade of green. Kelly green would be my pick for showing on a graph that your growth is really, really strong. My arrows would all be Kelly green. And if they're not as strong, well, then, then it's probably more of a yellowish type of green. Maybe we'd be, heading towards ochre. And I know ochre's not green, but, like that we'd have hues of in there, type of thing. Anyway, just to give you an idea. I mean, so yeah, we're doing better, but we're doing good, but we're not doing Kelly green good. And one thing that we should be noticing with the crowds over the past couple of weeks is that they've been hot. They've been having really good crowds that have been super into the show week after week, match after match. Like it's almost as if deciding to focus on providing a wrestling show with lots of really good to great wrestling on it. It's almost as if it's a recipe for your audience to get on your side and get really, really excited and stay invested in your show. Isn't that something? It ain't that weird that a wrestling crowd would want to buying tickets to go see a wrestling show would actually want to watch some wrestling and again, it's something that AEW does extremely well, and the audiences have been truly giving that back. But I also think the people that show up on these shows nowadays, like, over the past few weeks, are wrestlers that the fans want to see. They want, they're coming in and they're getting to see Kenny Omega wrestle. They're getting to see Swerve wrestle. They know the Hangman is going to be there. They know MJF is going to be there. They know Mox is going to be wrestling. They're going to see their favorites, right? They're going to see Willow Nightingale show up. You had Chris Statlander wrestling. Like the top people of the the top men and women of the roster are there week to week on the show. And that has not always been the case with AEW. One of the things that I pointed out, and a few other people did point out, months back, was that you never quite knew, as an AEW fan, you never quite knew who was going to be on the show. You never quite knew if the top stars that you want to see are going to be there in hopefully wrestling, but at least in some shape or form. And then you had a whole spat, right, where Kenny was out and Hangman was around, but Swerve was out. MJF was doing other stuff. Will is injured. You had a spat where you just didn't have these people available. And now look at that. Like you bring in your top stars. You promise they're going to be on TV. You have them wrestle and whatnot, and people buy tickets. People seem to be tuning in. People are excited, and your live crowds show that excitement by being invested in your show from A to Z. I think there's part of that too, where now it would appear that the AEW ticket buying audience feels more secure in picking up a ticket for a weekly taping, because the people that were the stars, the people that they're into, are going to be there, are going to be wrestling. I'd throw that into the explanation pile as well. It absolutely has. It has to have an incidence. It cannot not have an incidence, is essentially my point. So the show opens up with Rocky Romero already in the ring, and the crowd is chanting for Kenny Omega, because we're kicking off the show with that. And when Kenny comes out, what a great reaction, and it's Kenny Omega. And you see, like, isn't that this is what you want, right? Especially with a guy like Kenny Omega, that all the fans, like, this is one of the guys that your AEW fans want to pay to see wrestle. So if he's wrestling and people are excited to see him, and we're starting off the show with Rocky Romero already in the ring, so that when we cut to the audience, the audience is already chanting Kenny's name. That fucking rules. Like, right off the bat, I'm like, all right, okay, we've got ourselves an audience here. We've got ourselves a crowd. We've got ourselves a vibe for this show to start off. And look, Kenny Omega comes in and he destroys Rocky, as he should. The Allen Angels match, this was not. But it's exactly what it should have been. And, Kenny plays the hits, a Dragon Suplex, V-Trigger, One-Winged Angel, gets the job done. And everyone goes home happy with Kenny picking up another win. And again, we have to point out that Kenny, even though this was a short match, that it was just a squash, he looks motivated. He looks energetic. He looks like he's into what he's doing, right? And that's something that had been missing even since his return, post-surgery, after the Wrestle Dynasty match. Everything felt kind of aimless, and it didn't feel like he knew where he fit into all of this, right? And I had mentioned it here, right? How it was weird that Kenny Omega didn't feel part of the fabric of AEW. And now that he does feel like he's part of the company again, more than part of the company, that he's part of, I can't use any other word than fabric. It's Joe Lanza that used it one week, and I decided to adopt it. But it's really the best way to put it, that he's woven back into this tapestry that is AEW. Everyone feels reinvigorated by that, because you're watching Kenny Omega wrestle. You're watching Kenny Omega wrestle. You're watching him wrestle motivated with that same spark, that same little snap that you love so much from Kenny. Again, time will tell. Like, this was not the match to judge how far is he able to go, right? Not a squash match against Rocky Romero, but we shall see how far Kenny will be able to go once he challenges MJF for the world title, which is inevitably the thing, right? I mean, I like, that's going to be the match at Revolution, right? Like, it's a huge match. It's a huge match at this point. It was a big match when they did it a couple of years ago on that one Collision. I think it was on a Collision, right? But now, like, this is going to be like a big deal. This is going to be like a huge deal. Anyway, after the match, Kenny Omega is joined by Tony Schiavone, who has his he has the brightest yellow sneakers and matching tie I have ever seen. Commentary even made a joke about it, and I'm like, holy shit! Like, you could probably see Tony Schiavone from space at this point. Omega basically says, look. I've been grinding. I've been working my way up to a shot against MJF, and I think I deserve it, which brings out the Hangman Adam Page, who gets into the ring and says, look, all due respect, Kenny, everything's cool, but I'm going to be the next champion, which brings out Swerve Strickland, who comes in and says, well, yeah, you know what? This is all cool, but, I'm grinding and I'm unbeaten right now. So I'll probably be the next guy. And then Don Callis comes out to speak in lieu of Andrade, who Andrade has a lot of qualities, and his English speaking promos are definitely not there. He's not great at them. So Don Callis comes out and basically warns Omega and says, Hangman, we've got something for you, and whatever it is. Now, what I liked what this accomplished is this segment accomplished a couple of things. First and foremost, reminding us of all of these people vying to get a spot at the World Championship. And I dig that. I think it's so good that a champion has a rogues gallery of challengers that are just coming up after him, right? And you've got two guys, and we talked about this last week. We've got two guys here, namely Kenny Omega and Swerve Strickland, who currently are grinding to raise in the imaginary rankings that exist, right? Where it says, well, we got to win some matches to get to the number one title spot. That's what both of these guys have been doing, right? And I even said last week, I think these two are going to be on a collision course. I think these two are going to eventually meet, and I even said probably at the Grand Slam, that was going to be Kenny and Swerve, and the winner of that is going to move on to MJF at Revolution. Okay, so it turns out I was wrong, that it's not Swerve Strickland, it's going to be Andrade. That's okay. And in fact, it's even more interesting because, look, might as well talk about the result of the main event because it all ties into this point as well. The fact that Andrade went over Swerve, I believe, should be considered an upset. It's something that just took everyone. I feel it took everyone by surprise. I think everyone sort of assumed that we were going to get Kenny versus Swerve and do the plan that I had laid out. But no, Swerve's. So what this means with Andrade winning, because Andrade was in this chase, like that one feels a little more forced. But nonetheless, don't get me wrong, I'm still okay with this. Andrade was part of this world championship chase as well. And what this means is, with the loss, it means that Swerve is back to the end of the queue. He no longer has an immediate short-term claim to becoming the number one contender because another guy just passed him in the imaginary rankings. I swear to fucking God, people, if we still had rankings, this would rule so much because we would all be pulling up the rankings board and we'd be analyzing stuff. We could have not seen Andrade necessarily coming, but then the stakes of Andrade versus Swerve would have been so much clearer, where maybe these two guys are vying for the number 2 spot. Maybe Kenny has the number 1 spot, and they're like both tied at number 3. And they're like, okay, well, whoever wins this one, is one step closer to booting Kenny off of the number 1 spot or whatever. And it would have just made things so much clearer. This storyline that's going on right now is complete and utter proof that the anti-rankings crew, the rankings detractors, were always wrong about the rankings being confusing and that it would inhibit storytelling and whatnot. We're doing a rankings storyline right now in AEW, and there are no rankings officially, and it rocks, and it's involved 4 to 5 guys in this story as we're going along. I will continue to handwave anyone who says the rankings weren't good, they were inhibitors to stories and whatnot. Pshaw! Fuck off! I handwave you expeditiously. There you go. That's my expeditious handwave right there. So the fact that Swerve lost this match knocks him out of contention. He doesn't have a claim to it anymore. So it's still Kenny, because Kenny's been winning his matches, and now Andrade leapfrogged into this spot because he beat a guy who is highly ranked, so he gets a bigger boost in the rankings. So now he's a legitimate contender, and that's why we're going to be having Kenny versus Andrade at the Australia show, the Grand Slam Australia show, which was announced by Tony Schiavone and his blinding yellow shoes. That's why we're getting it there, so that it will set up down the line for Kenny versus MJF at the Revolution thing. And the other thing that this keeps open then, that is not settled, is Kenny Omega and Swerve Strickland's beef. Because when Swerve came to the ring during this segment, he was not happy at all, and he's got a bone to pick with Kenny, and they were sizing each other up, and they weren't taking shit from either. Either guy wasn't taking shit from the other guy. That's the way it should be. That's how it should be put together, Warren. And you could feel the tension, and you were like, this is going to get settled, like I was thinking at Grand Slam. I thought they had done at that point. I was like, oh shit, they're even setting up the Grand Slam show. This is tremendous. But then no, I get swerved the fuck out at the end, where it's like, oh shit, it's Andrade. Holy fuck. So you know what that means? That means they're hanging on to Swerve versus Kenny, because Kenny is likely going to win in Australia, and he's likely going to be in the main event of Revolution against MJF. So they're hanging on to Kenny versus Swerve, which has a potential to be a very, very marquee match for Wembley Stadium. That's the new path that I'm seeing for this. They can continue to slow build this, with Hangman hanging around Kenny and whatnot, and Swerve being, the jealous girlfriend, because Hangman is talking to other girls. That's essentially it until this all comes to a head and explodes. I really, this is one of the reasons why I was talking about, things feeling rejuvenated and different and a fresh coat of paint. This is one of the reasons why, because the finish to the main event felt completely unexpected, continues to elevate a guy, continues to extend a story between two top guys who will probably not have any titles come Wembley Stadium, but titles or not, will have a really interesting feud to go to and create a marquee match just based on the through line story that they're telling. I think the endpoint booking for Omega and Swerve is going to be at Wembley, where they're going to have a one-on-one, provided everyone stays healthy, of course. But I think that's what we're doing, and that's exciting. This is why everything in this segment fucking worked, and it worked so well. Anyway, look at how much I'm into this, and this is just the first segment. Strap in, we're gonna have a 2-hour review. Spoiler alert: we can't have a 2-hour review. Jon Moxley defeated Ace Austin in an eliminator match for Jon Moxley's Continental Crown title. And look, when I'm talking about fresh coats of paint again, you got Ace Austin here, who I believe, if I'm not mistaken, was his Dynamite debut, and I thought he looked pretty good. I thought Moxley looked great, as he usually does, and what we had was a solid, well put together match where I thought Austin was a little rough at particularly at like one moment. There's one moment in the match where he tries to do a springboard and it doesn't quite work out for him. I don't know, like it suddenly looked like he went for it, but then he lost confidence just as he was setting up to do it. But look, he didn't look embarrassing by any stretch of the imagination. He looked good. Moxley looked good, and Moxley wins with the Death Rider. But what's interesting here is the post-match angle where Konosuke Takeshita walks down to the ring to stand nose to nose with Jon Moxley, and I'm like, all right, let's go. I'm into this. I'm into more Konosuke Takeshita, and as Takeshita is backing away, Davis and Doyle attack Mox from behind, lay him out. This would come into play a little later on in the evening, but the Don Callis family continues to do Don Callis family things. Mark Briscoe successfully retained the AEW TNT Championship against El Clone. And I thought this match was awesome. I thought this was a great match. Once again, Mark Briscoe continues to be one of the most consistently great TV performers that this company has. Like, maybe outside of Jon Moxley, he might be as good or very close to Jon Moxley, like on being there on a week-to-week basis, always working, always leaving everything out there. The crowd connection, just the energy, the throw caution to the wind vibe that he has worked perfect with El Clone here as well, who I thought had a really good showing. The guy under the mask, Arez, has always been terrific, and doing some really cool shit that you could tell the AEW audience wasn't used to seeing out of him, not used to seeing him, period, because he doesn't wrestle much on Dynamite, which again is part of this fresh coat of paint type of situation that made things feel so good. And this match was awesome. And we're hitting finishers. We're doing froggy bows. Hey, tell me you didn't lift your hand up to your mouth when Mark Briscoe does the J Driller, lands it, but Clone just lands on his head, right? But pops right back up onto his feet and no-sells the thing. Tell me you didn't go, oh, that you didn't do that was pretty awesome. We can get into discussions with the fucking purists and the finishers and whatnot. I saw a cool moment. I saw a cool thing in a wrestling match. I'm like, nah, I'm fine. I'm okay with this. And the sequence, all of this match ends with a fun sequence, and Clone has Briscoe up on his shoulders to do the hollow bomb. Is that how he calls it? The hologram's finisher? I think that's how he calls it, the hollow bomb. And not the hollow, HOLLOW bomb, not hollow like HOLO, like hologram. Just to make sure, just so that you don't think like it's something that is empty. There's nothing empty about the hollow bomb, the HOLO. Even though a hologram technically is empty because it's non-corporeal. It's it's illusion, it's trickery, it's lights and lasers, right? So you can't really touch it. Maybe it is hollow, as in something that is empty. Maybe it is. Maybe that's ultimately what all holograms are. Maybe this is ultimately the great tragedy of Hologram the Wrestler. Maybe Hologram the Wrestler, his great tragedy is that he's just, he's just an empty husk trying to find meaning in his life. I don't know. I'm just putting thoughts out there. Deep thoughts. Mark Briscoe wins with the schoolboy because he's able to wriggle out of the bomb and the hollow bomb and then get the win. So good for him, and he retains the championship. After the match, he continues to say that I'm going to continue doing. He says that he's going to continue. I'll get it right. He says he'll continue to do the TNT Open Challenge. And he'll continue on Saturday on Collision, and he'll take on all comers. The lights go out, and then there's a brand new entrant. Someone comes out. It is Tommaso Ciampa who shows up. You want to talk about fresh coats of paint? You want to talk about, new and surprising things? There you go. I am shocked, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between. I am so surprised that Tommaso Ciampa wasted no time and is immediately in AEW. I really wasn't expecting it. So I don't think anyone else, I hadn't seen anyone, put out rumors or, it's just everyone kept their fucking mouths shut, and the surprise return worked. And the cool thing is, out the gate, this audience that was there, they knew who he was. He came out, he got a huge reaction. People were into it. They were like, fuck yeah, Tommaso Ciampa. And he gets into the ring, and he squares off against Mark Briscoe, with whom he has history. And didn't I see the Ring of Honor, the Ring of Honor channel on YouTube put out, a Mark Briscoe Tommaso Ciampa match out there as well. So they were ready for this. They did everything right on this one. And Ciampa doesn't, he doesn't say anything. He just stands nose to nose with Briscoe. And you can tell both guys are really happy. You can tell Mark Briscoe has this little twinkle in his eye. And Tommaso Ciampa, Jesus Christ, a guy who was at the apex of the best era of NXT, right? He was the guy, the heel of the company. He was a guy who was legitimately drawing money along with Johnny Gargano and their feud. These are guys that were filling up the basketball arenas, completely unthinkable today with this current iteration of NXT. When you think about how, just 6 to 7 years ago, they were filling out basketball arenas with the third fucking brand of the company for the takeovers. And who was at the top? It was this guy. And yes, you can argue and extend this to Johnny Gargano as well, but this was the guy. He was the champion. He was the heel dude that everyone wanted to hate. He goes up to main roster, and these are the two big ideas that they had for Tommaso Ciampa. Have him be an underling to Mike the Miz and reunite with Johnny Gargano to do his old act. Now, I cannot blame this guy to look at what happened. Now, I understand he's been injured. Don't get me wrong. It's fine. But I can understand that this guy looks at the landscape in WWE. He looks at what Triple H's genius creative is doing, right? He's like, okay, so the best they can do is set me back years and put me back in a tag team that we haven't touched in nearly a decade. I have not been in this tag team for almost 10 years. But yes, let's go do this again. Or make me dress up like Mike the Miz and try to do try to give me the Mike the Miz rub, which doesn't work. By the way, we've heard multiple times about a year ago, 18 months ago, 2 years ago, something like that. Remember all the discussion about the Jericho vortex? How come we never talk about the Mike the Miz vortex? Because that's a thing that also fucking exists, and exists for real. The number of people who have been into the Miz's orbit that never amounted to anything after, or who got anything good about them gets sucked out. Tommaso Ciampa is a great example of that. Anyway, Sidebar. So Ciampa's looking at all of this. He's looking at what, he's like, I'm not going to stick around here and be someone else's underling. I'm not going to, and I want to wrestle. This is a Ring of Honor guy. This is a guy who came up wrestling. This is how he made he's part of this group, that he's part of this gang that were all about putting on great matches. Why would he stick around WWE and cross his fingers and hope to God that maybe this week, Papa Paul has something for me? The same Papa Paul that pushed me to the moon, that gave everyone sort of hope that once Triple H took over WWE, that it'd be the black and gold guys, it'd be over, that it'd be booked differently. When in fact, not only is WWE booked the same, but it's booked with even less ideas than what Vince had. So the point being is that Ciampa was like, yeah, you know what? I'm done with this shit. I'm heading out. And I'm just surprised at how quickly it all came together with AEW. I'm just utterly, completely shocked with how quickly all of this came together. Good for him. But look, I'm excited to see what Tommaso Ciampa has left in the tank. I've stopped watching WWE for a couple of years now. So even when he was in the DIY team, I didn't see anything. I don't know what's left. I don't know what he's got left in the tank. This is a guy who famously has neck fusion surgery. That's a huge health concern, like right there, as far as, how much he can go. He's got a knee busted. Is it one knee? Is it two knees? I don't remember. But, one of his knees is busted. He has a litany of injuries. This is not like Ricochet, when Ricochet came into AEW and his bump card was essentially clean. Ciampa's coming in and he's damaged goods. So I'm looking forward to see how far he can go, what he's got left. And starting off with Mark Briscoe, god damn, that's a great way to slide in. Two guys who know each other that are probably going to be very excited to wrestle each other again. And look at how excited, I think I was talking about this and then I got sidetracked. Look at how excited Tommaso Ciampa was when he came out, and after he did the little stare down, started walking around the ring, felt reinvigorated, energized. He felt good. He felt like he was back, in a place that really did appreciate him. And if he can work, if he can still work even a fraction of what he used to be able to do, he's going to be fine. AEW fans, they're much more inclined to get behind people who have a solid work rate. That can get you over without even ever picking up a microphone. There's examples of that in AEW as well. So as far as Tommaso Ciampa goes, they're starting him off hot. He's in a really good spot in the mid card. I don't know if he's a top guy. I don't know. I really honestly don't know. In the current mix of top guys in AEW, especially the ones that are waiting in the wings, I don't know if he fits in there. But as a high upper strata mid card act like Mark Briscoe, absolutely 100%. It's a perfect spot for him. So we'll see how it all turns out. And I've got a reason to watch Collision this weekend. Not that I usually need that, not that I usually need all that much convincing, but now I'm really excited. Now I'm like, all right, let's go do this. Renee Paquette is backstage with Kyle Fletcher. She's starting an interview. Kazuchika Okada rolls up and he basically tells Kyle, look, I'm sorry I took the screwdriver at World's End. I just really wanted to win, and I knew you'd be able to win, and I really wanted to move forward because I wanted the Continental title to stay within the Don Callis family, and I apologize. So he outright says to Fletcher, I'm sorry for what happened. And Fletcher, a little taken aback, goes, yeah, all right. Takes a big man to admit his wrongs, and apology accepted, brother. And they shake hands and they move on. Look, we might as well jump immediately to another segment that happens later on in the evening, where Don Callis is standing and he's got he is standing with Fletcher and Takeshita, and basically he's reiterating that everyone's here to collect championships. You got Andrade who's coming up. He's going to beat Swerve and then move on to beat MJF. You got Takeshita who's got his eye on the Continental Classic. The TNT title is still, in the eyes of Kyle Fletcher. And then he urges Takeshita to follow Kyle Fletcher's lead and apologize to Kazuchika Okada. But you can tell that Takeshita is not into it. There's still bad blood there. And why wouldn't there be? Fucking Okada blasted him across the head with a screwdriver to get the win. So why would Takeshita be in any spot to apologize? It should be the other way around. And once Don Callis leaves, you hear Takeshita go, so you apologize to Okada? And Fletcher goes, yeah, I did. And Takeshita's disappointed because these guys are best buds. They're friends. We've established that clearly on Collision and, even before that, but it's been very, very clearly positioned that these guys are super close. And now this is driving a wedge between the two. This continues to be a ploy of Kazuchika Okada to continue to get at Takeshita, and in this circumstance, by chipping away at his best friend, at his relationships, to continue to isolate him from the rest of the group, so that their petty beef continues. I don't hate it. I think this is not too hokey. It's not too corny. It all makes sense. I'm enjoying this direction that we're still going here. Now, the one thing that I don't particularly care about is the idea that Kyle Fletcher is still on the TNT title level. That's essentially what Don Callis was saying, and I was like, yeah, but no. I felt that Kyle Fletcher losing the TNT title had him losing up. And if he goes back to challenge for the TNT title instead of getting inserted into something else, I think we might be I think we might be treading some water and, doing a full 360 and going back exactly to where we started. That I'm not into. That I don't think is great. Anyway, back to the rest of the breakdown after the Renee Paquette interview with Kyle Fletcher and the Okada apology. MJF comes to the ring to cut a promo. He's warming up. He starts insulting people, and then Brody King's music immediately hits. He comes to the ring. MJF starts mocking him. Says he's never seen a guy as liberal as Brody King is dress as much like a Nazi as he does. I thought people were going to take offense to that, and I was like, oh God, here we go. But it seems that, at least on Blue Sky at the very least, which I thought was going to be the place where things were going to erupt because no one likes MJF there, everyone seemed okay with it. They even said this is a good line. I thought it was a good line. I enjoyed it. I just thought that people were going to lose their minds over it, but they didn't. Apparently, this is even something that Brody joked about when he was on RJ City's show, Hey EW, which I don't watch. So I couldn't tell you. I don't know. Apparently Brody King said that about himself, joking about it. So everyone was like, he's fine with it. He even said it himself. All right. Okay. I don't know what your standards are anymore, Blue Sky. It's fine. Anyway, regardless, I thought it was a good line. I like Max's work regardless. And then he tries to weasel out of the match, which is a typical MJF thing to do. He even offers him a place as his bodyguard. He's trying to, schmooze him into becoming the next Wardlow. And, it's all consistent MJF stuff. And then Brody gets on the mic and basically tears him down and says, no, you know what? You can smooth talk me all you want. I'm going to earn a shot at Grand Slam Australia. MJF was even telling him, it's like, you're a follower. You bark because you're a puppy who follows other people. That's what led him to say, well, why don't you follow me? He said, you follow Malachi Black, right? You followed Buddy Matthews, a name that strikes fear in the hearts of men, which I don't know why no one else has really pointed that out. I thought that was probably the best line of his promo and it made me laugh. This is now you're following Bandito and so on and so forth. It was a good promo. It was a good promo by Max, and it was a very good response by Brody, who was much more confident on the mic this time around. You know, I talked a bit about Brody's promo skills last week. I swear to God, I'm telling you, people, there are some people who listen to this and take my criticism to heart. My observations at the very least, I'm convinced, you know, I know for a fact, you know, if you ever get into podcasting, if you ever want to get into podcasting and do a little wrestling podcast with, you know, and enjoy yourself and do something fun, you know, don't ever assume, never fucking assume that no one is going to be listening, that no one important is going to be listening. Never assume that people in the business are not watching. I'm just going to leave it at that. So to wrap up this segment here, Brody is essentially going to get an eliminator match next week on Dynamite against MJF. And then if he wins, he gets a title shot, because that's how the eliminators go. And the eliminator match is going to be at the Australia show, Grand Slam. I don't know why I can't. It's always the Australia show. Why can't I connect Grand Slam in Australia? I couldn't tell you. I don't know. Maybe it's because when I think of Australian sports, I think of Australian rules. I think of Aussie rules football, right? The AFL, which is absolutely fantastic. It's legitimately probably the best sport to watch on earth. It is so much fun. Anyway, where was I? What was I talking about? Brody getting the match at that Grand Slam. So if he beats Max next week, he gets the title match at Grand Slam. And I think this is fine. Like, for nice little TV programs that they've set up for Max while waiting for the real number one challenger for the pay-per-view to be set. The booking has been tremendous. It's just been tremendous. The creative has all felt has felt good. It's given us great TV. Everything feels connected. It feels like there's clear endpoints. It feels like we're heading somewhere. All of it makes sense. Bravo. This has really been a good strip of booking in AEW. The Young Bucks have a video package announcing that they are returning to their classic look with the tassels and the super kick parties, just to make sure that everyone understands that the Severance knockoff stuff, the EVP stuff, that's all done. Chris Statlander has successfully retained the AEW Women's World Championship against Tekla. Good little affair here. I thought this was really good, super solid. Tekla is such a standout. She's such a standout. She's very good. And it's crazy because in Stardom, she was in the same unit as Julia, right? Bella Del Mundo. Bella Del Mundo, I think that's what it was. Bella Del Mundo, the beauties of the world, right? Something like that. Bella Del Mundo. They were in the same unit anyway. And Julia was always the star. And Tekla was always, she never really cracked the mid card. And, she was always, running openers. She was doing the trios matches and all that. But she never really cracked anything higher than the mid card. And Julia always came across as the star, as the big leagues. She was the one that everyone had their attention focused on. And now it's kind of crazy to me when you look at the landscape right now of pro wrestling in the United States. Tekla has buzz. She has legitimate buzz from pro wrestling fans, as opposed to Julia, who I couldn't even tell you what she's doing these days. No one talks about Julia anymore. All I know is that she's no longer on NXT. But no one talks about Julia anymore. this woman that a few years ago people wouldn't shut up about because of how great she was, and how violent she was and the shoot headbutts and all that. Now it's like I don't. There's no buzz. It's not just me. No one talks about her, and it's not just a WWE thing. Because trust me, I know when there's buzz. Rhea Ripley, even though she's in WWE, when she does stuff, when she gets buzz. Bianca Belair, she gets buzz. When's the last time Stephanie McCare has buzz? Julia has nothing. So it's really fascinating to me that Tekla is someone that fans have gravitated to, and that she has proven her worth too on top of that. She's a great worker, and I would have never imagined that she'd have the level of quality promos that she does week in, week out. Like, holy shit, she's really good. And in the meantime is developing a legitimate crowd connection. I don't know what to tell you. At this point, I don't know what to tell you. It's been awesome. She's been such a find for AEW. It's been tremendous. What a gamble. Like, what a gamble they took on her. Or maybe they were really short. Or she saw the opportunity and she's like, I'm going to grab this one by the horns and I'm just going to ride this one, right? I'm going to do everything I can. And it's working out great. She had a very good match with Statlander. I thought it was really well put together. It was a solid match. Some great back and forth. That great spear counter that, the great spear spot, I should say, with Statlander was awesome. And Statlander wins with the Wednesday Night Fever, and it was awesome. And then after the match, the Babes of Wrath come out to celebrate with Statlander. And then Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford show up at the top of the ramp. Clearly, Megan Bayne eyeing that World Championship title. And look, you keep asking me. I will 100% tell you, Megan Bayne is the most improved wrestler of 2025. So I'm completely okay with having a big powerhouse brawl between these two sooner than later. Then we get the Don Callis backstage promo that we already talked about with Fletcher and Takeshita. We get a Jack Perry promo where he promises to take the AEW national title away from Ricochet as he stabs a piece of plywood with one of his knives. And then we had some earlier today footage where Ricochet and the Gates of Agony are beating the piss out of Jack Perry, and they double powerbomb him through a table. Yeah! FTR defeated Davis and Doyle to retain the AEW Men's World Tag Team Championship. This was a good match. Of course, the story that's overshadowing everything is not Dax Harwood bleeding hard way from the chest. It's not the accidental blood. And then how fucking brutal this match was, but brutal, not brutal as in bad, brutal as in, actually violent and hard hitting. No, it's Jake Doyle apparently tearing his bicep. He hit. I think he just hit a lariat, right? Rolled to the floor, and we didn't see him for the rest of the match. People said that I didn't hear it myself, but they heard the camera mic pick up that him saying that he had torn his bicep, and I'm like, oh man, this fucking bums me out. This bums me out so much. It bums me out because I like Jake Doyle. I like Jake something. I like Jake Doyle. I was like, this is probably the best possible spot for him right now. You got out of TNA, DPW shut down. This is best for him. He's a wrestler that brings something different to the table than what we're typically used to seeing. The tag team with Mark Davis was fantastic because then again, you use another guy like Mark Davis who's kind of been just there in some sort of weird holding pattern since returning from injury, and in the meantime, he comes back from injury in the midst of Kyle Fletcher's singles push. So we're not reuniting Aussie Open anytime soon. Yeah, so I'm like, this is great. One guy who deserves to be deserves to have a good, solid national TV run. Mark Davis back on TV in a spot that fits him. He's a great tag team wrestler on top of that. And then it all fucking falls apart here. And it was a tag team I was so excited for too. I was so excited for this tag team. This is going to be so different from anything else they have on the roster. Two high-level, high-energy guys working their asses off, big fucking brutes. And the way this match was constructed was meant to highlight that. And then Doyle gets injured. Look, if it is a tear, as everyone seems to be assuming, he's going to be out for a while. And that fucking stinks. That stinks because it paralyzes his debut. He just came in, had a ton of momentum, and it also sends Mark Davis back into a holding pattern, and it fucking sucks. But the match was awesome for what it was worth. For what it was worth, the match was awesome. The Death Riders interfered to cost the match. Retribution for what they did to Mox earlier on, they being Davis and Doyle. So they were probably angling up something, with the Death Riders and whatnot, and it all sucks. It just all fucking sucks. Renee Paquette is with Orange Cassidy backstage, and he's making fun of Wheeler Yuta and his hair and his, and all of that. And then Wheeler Yuta confronts him, and then Marina Shafir comes in to confront him, and then Toni Storm comes out to confront her, and then there's an overall confrontation, and they're all split apart, and we're going to get some kind of mixed match sometime soon because people really like Orange Cassidy and Toni Storm together. That leads us to the main event, where Andrade El Idolo defeated Swerve Strickland. And I think we've covered pretty much everything. Other than, you know what? Here's something else. Andrade feels reignited. It looks like he's into it. He's enjoying himself. This is another guy who right now looks like he has the spark of life in him. And that's tremendous. And that also added to this match. The flirting with Miranda Alizé. No, not Miranda Alizé. Was it Miranda Alizé? No. It was, I can't remember who. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Like, I know it's not Miranda Alizé. Miranda Alizé is Nixon Newell's girlfriend. I don't know why that name popped into my mind. Anyway, like, these are all plants, right? But they're doing the flirting thing after the big Collision flirting spot that they did there that practically tore down the internet. People went absolutely bonkers for that. The point here, anyway, regardless of that spot, Andrade just feels reinvigorated, and that's good. Look, again, it's Andrade, so we'll see how long this lasts. But you can tell he's enjoying himself. He's into it. He's got a spark. He's smiling a lot. He's enjoying himself. I look. And that was a solid match that he had with Swerve. Swerve was very good as well. I don't know, like it was a very good main event that I thought was excellent. It's a 4-star type of deal. Kind of like Briscoe and El Clone. It's a 4-star type of situation. I thought it was awesome, really good match. And then so Andrade wins. Cheating. Distracts the ref, does a low blow, and gets the win off of that, despite, emptying out his arsenal to try to put Swerve away. So we got to make sure to protect Swerve and so on and so forth. That, it is what it is. And then we cut after that to backstage where MJF basically dismisses, once again, Brody King. Then Kenny Omega appears into view and says, I got one more match, and then it's you and me at Revolution, brother. And MJF is like, okay. Then he walks away, runs into Andrade, who's coming off of the match. Andrade basically says the same thing. I want your title. I'm coming for you. And MJF is like, fuck, leave me alone. And the camera follows him until he walks out of the building, gets to his car. And then Hangman shows up, and MJF is like, all right. He gets into the car and he's like, drive the car. Get me the fuck out of here. So again, reminding us that MJF has a whole plethora of challengers right now, and he's being MJF. He's being cowardly and craven, and is not enjoying the situation right now, and it's terrific. It's all good, just like this show. An excellent Dynamite. How much did I even complain about anything here? I think I complained about one thing. What did I complain about? I don't even remember. That's how minute my complaints are in regards to the greater situation here. Look, folks, again, Dynamite, particularly since the beginning of the year, has been on a roll. This post-Continental Classic season that we have this year in 2026 has been excellent. Compare that to 2025, it is fucking night and day. This has been a great strip of really fun professional wrestling television, great professional wrestling in general, no nonsense, no bullshit. As I said earlier, all killer, no filler. There you have it. Hopefully this review was all killer, no filler as well. Hope, that would be my best way to give a proper homage to what happened. But look, if you liked it, leave a like here on the YouTube channel, or a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, or a 5-star rating on Spotify. If you are listening to this on Thursday, I will be back later tonight with a live stream here on the YouTube channel. Otherwise, we'll be back Monday for another stream, Wednesday for the Mr. Warren Hayes Show, and another Dynamite review next Thursday. So, in the meantime, wherever it is you decide to come back and say hello, I will bid you adieu, say thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.